Releasing in Australian cinemas is a new Australian film called We Bury the Dead. And it's my great pleasure to be speaking to the writer-director of We Bury the Dead, Zak Hilditch. Zak, welcome to Movie Metropolis.
Thanks for having me.
Always good to talk to you. Now, I think I remember speaking to you some years ago with These Final Hours.
Yeah, many, many moons ago.
It was. So what was the inspiration behind We Bury the Dead?
Yeah, well, it's funny you mentioned These Final Hours. That at the time was probably the most personal, poignant film that I'd made, about moving on from your carefree 20s into your more adult 30s, sort of a coming of age story set on the last day on Earth. And the roots of that film very much run right through this, and I very much see We Bury the Dead as a spiritual successor to that film, not only because it's the first film I've shot in Australia and Perth since These Final Hours, but this one's probably even more personal to me than the rest of my work, given that it was sort of all born out of the passing of my mother and it being left to me to sort of pack up the family home, pack up my childhood home, and just going room to room and making certain discoveries. And there was something quite cathartic about the physicality of doing that. And it sort of made me realize that when it comes to grief, like I'm glad that I had that to do because I was sort of struggling a bit there with how to move past what had happened. And then I sort of started thinking with my filmmaker cap on, oh, there's something worth mining here further. I never thought it would be a Daisy Ridley zombie movie at the end of the day, but the initial kernel was an exploration of grief and coming up with a character that was 1 or 2 degrees removed from me. I'm just a boring guy in Perth, but making something slightly more exciting and something a bit removed. And that's when I invented this character, Ava, that Daisy ends up playing. And the rest was history. I sort of decided the snowball effect of like this exploration of grief and wanting to tell it in a way that wasn't just the world's most Debbie Downer of a kitchen sink drama, but was a little bit exciting as well. And my love of genre and sort of art house, poignant, very personal films. And I love it when those two things clash, and that's exactly what I set out to do with We Bury the Dead.
Well, you certainly have done that, so congratulations on that. I found it so interesting that
Oh, thank you.
the film starts with a catastrophic incident in Tasmania. We don't use Tasmania often enough for catastrophic incidents, so I thought that was interesting. But then the plotting goes from there, and as you say, we meet Daisy Ridley and her husband and her search for him. Um, so in plotting the story, what were some of the challenges in putting all that together so that it would flow in a reasonable way for an audience?
Yeah, it's interesting. Like sometimes as a writer, you sit there and a story kind of comes, like sort of flows out of your pores. And when I created the character of Ava and the situation she had found herself in, I was almost just following her. I was like, hey, now what would she do? Like I set up the parameters, I set up the goalposts. I was like, as accurately as possible in my own warped brain, like if this did happen to Tasmania, what would the next day be like? What would the day after that be like? And I sort of felt like a nation in mourning dealing with the situation themselves was quite interesting. Never really wanting to get too embedded in that, but that was basically why it was a mixture of US military personnel and civilians who had to act quite quickly to deal with this situation. So I'd set the parameters, and I really just wanted to drop Ava in that, right in the middle of that situation, so unequipped with what she'd even signed up for, simply because her husband was there. And in a way, as a writer, it was an interesting process because I really was just following and thinking, who would be the most unlikely bedfellow for her to go on this road trip with? Who would who would a real problem be now for her to encounter? Like, sort of just it all sort of just came quite easily. And so bit by bit, draft by draft, like there was versions of it because I started writing the script at the end of 2019 when I was living in Los Angeles. It was set in America. Then I sort of toyed with New Zealand. But ultimately, when I came back to Australia, back to Perth after COVID, during COVID, Tasmania just made the most sense because there's 500,000 population. The rest of the world doesn't even really know what a Tasmania is. But I thought, look, it's an interesting location geographically to put on the cinematic map, but also it just feels a bit more real that if this did happen to 500,000 people, it'd be a huge catastrophe. but one that would be more manageable than if millions and millions and millions of people in America, let's say 20 million people, like my original ideas, lofty ideas for this, it sort of was leaning towards. I wanted to make it a much more intimate, and therefore it needed to be an island. And so, yeah, sometimes the story also just tells you what it does and doesn't want to be doing. And when I sort of had that all click, that Tasmania was the perfect setting for this. Again, I just tripled down on that and sort of started looking at all the towns. And I'd been to Tassie quite a bit, but I hadn't done the whole island. So I was sort of learning on the job. Like, okay, I wanted to land in Devonport, and then she's got to make her way south. So sort of just really educating myself on Tassie. And I've been to Hobart a bunch, which is awesome. But yeah, it came to really researching the island and figuring out what this would take for her to go from point A to point B.
Oh, how very interesting to hear that. Although I must add, I think a lot of the film was shot in Western Australia, if I'm not mistaken.
So as hard as it is for Ava to traverse Tasmania in the movie, it was as hard for us to really shoot there. I mean, it would have been a dream come true to shoot this movie Tassie for Tassie, but it just wasn't to be. It's just so hard. It is a rugged, hard, isolated
Mm.
place, and we didn't have all the money in the world. So basically, we started looking at WA. And I'd never been to Albany in my entire life. Being born and bred in WA, it's kind of sacrilege. So we went down there, and I couldn't believe like just what I was seeing. It was like, how long's this been hidden away all the way at the bottom of our state? And so I started just spending so much time there and immersing myself in that whole town and what it had to offer. And ultimately, at the end of the day, the entire town doubled for Tasmania. There were three shots in the entire movie that ended up being pickup shots in real Tassie. Because they were specific landmarks. The rest literally was Albany. I thought we'd be doing a lot more heavy lifting in the edit, like going to Tassie and getting some plate shots, getting some drone stuff. But no, Albany just offered everything we needed. And it's been great showing it to people from Tassie who literally, until they're told, have no idea that it wasn't shot in Tassie.
Ah, the magic of the movies. Yes, that's very good. I,
Yeah.
I like that, and also the look of the film. I mean, you really put some strength into the way the film looks, the way you shot the film, and plus on top of that, you could have just gone overboard with zombies and with the undead everywhere and all that. But again, you may, as you said, you make it more personal. So paring it back that way makes it, I suppose, more of a personal story.
Yeah, and that's just sort of what I love about cinema, like the rug pulls, and this movie's got quite a few rug pulls in it, especially for people going in thinking they're getting one thing and hopefully getting so much more than they ever anticipated from an emotional point of view. And I mean, the whole movie is on Daisy's shoulders, like she's in every scene, like you know, hopefully people are just so captivated by what she's experiencing as this complete stranger in a strange land that it takes the audience members who don't necessarily like zombie movies and gives them something that they're going to enjoy, but also takes people who are hardcore zombie lovers appreciating that we've done something different, that we've tried to offer something new to the canon, a canon that has been done to death. And if you're gonna make a zombie movie in the modern era, you better have something new to say, or a slight left hook to take, or else what's the point?
Yes, no, fair comment. I love the way you said it's been done to death. Well, it can always be resurrected, I suppose. But anyway, we won't go there.
Boom, Tish.
Oh, dear. All right. Now, now, tell me about casting. I mean, Daisy Ridley is so superb. Mark Cole Smith and Brenton Thwaites, plus even a cameo from Joel Jackson. I mean,
Yes.
you put some really interesting actors into the film.
Oh, I was just so lucky. Firstly, with Daisy, she was the first actress we ever sent the script to, and I prepared myself for a year's wait, which sometimes things take years, to get the right actor, to have someone finally read it. Within 1 week, we were chatting, and she was saying she wanted to be a part of this, and it's like lightning striking. And looking back, it's like one of those situations where you can't imagine anyone but her like pulling this off. It was right place, right time, right part of her career to do something like this, something she hadn't been able to flex yet. Like what she gets to do as Ava in this movie. Like I hadn't seen her put all those things together. Like I've been such a fan of hers ever since she was thrust into Star Wars. But seeing her like just rise to the occasion with my words on the page and doing so much more with them than I could have ever anticipated. Just so lucky. Like she's just an absolute gun, and so lovely to work with. And then the two dudes, I was just blessed that Brenton Thwaites and Mark Smith that I was able to get both of them to surround Daisy. And just again, like both of them are just so different in the movie. But the three of them together, like it's just I wish there was more scenes in the movie of the three of them together because no spoilers, but there isn't a lot of that in the film. But given that it's a road movie essentially, but yeah, I was just blown away. And then even just getting Joel Jackson to be a part of it for like a day, like he's just such a good dude. Yeah, I was really, really surrounded by amazing people and amazing talent.
Congratulations on that because they all work together so well. It's a really strong cast. And another thing that impressed me was the sound design and the music by Clark is the
Hmm.
credit. Can you tell me more about that? Because you really put a lot of effort into getting the right sound for the film.
Yeah, like we honestly didn't know who was gonna compose this film, and we're in the edit, and you use a bunch of temp tracks, and there was one track in particular we were using, which was from an Apple TV series based on Stephen King's Lissy's story, which had Julianne Moore in it, and we were using a specific piece from it that Clark had composed because he did the score for the entire show. And I didn't really know much about Clark, but he's a British musician, composer that lives in Melbourne, which is handy. Anyway, because we were falling in love, me and my editor, with his particular piece of music, we decided to sort of just reach out to him. And lo and behold, like he came on board the film, and my God, I'm so glad he did. Like he just added so many layers, so much texture. And then when it comes to like the sound design itself, my God, the team, Peter and Duncan in Adelaide, who did God's work with this sound design, especially those teeth, the teeth which have become like quite synonymous with film.
Okay, well done on that. I was wondering, we won't go into spoilers here because we want people to see the film. I wondered by the end of the film whether the ending or the conclusion to the film was set in concrete or whether you played around with that a bit to vary it.
The ending of the film from the very first draft, variations of the ending, but it was always that kind of ending. Without giving too much away,
Yeah,
it's interesting. Like whatever draft I did, it always stuck. And there were different interpretations of it. But the one that we have in the finished film, yeah, it was kind of there from day one, which was kind of great because it gave me a bedrock to sort of work backwards from. If you can, as a writer, when you sit there and if you've already got your ending sort of like locked in stone, it kind of makes your job easy. It's about figuring out how to get there, And they say the best endings are surprising yet inevitable, and hopefully our ending sort of ticks both those boxes.
yeah. No, it works really well. No, it's fine. I'm always intrigued when screenplays emerge and how endings in particular are put together. Tell me about the visual effects, special effects, the makeup, all that sort of thing, because that's a strong part of the film as well.
Oh, absolutely. Like, this is my very first zombie film. I never thought I'd be making a zombie film. And now you find yourself doing one. So the first thing you got to get right is those prosthetics and those zombies because if they look shit, like you're ruined before you've even started. So thank God we were able to get our hands on Jason Baird, who had just come off an Oscar nomination for Elvis at the time, and he's just an absolute rock star in every sense of the word, and just so great. It's just so great to see him and his team, Haley Atherton here, and him working in cahoots to get themselves an actor nomination for best makeup because yeah they really went to the nth degree to make sure our zombies looked up to snuff and then my editor Merlin, who is here from Perth, has his own company Siamese. Like I've done a bunch of films with him now, and it's just amazing having your editor be the head of your VFX department as well. It just makes that pipeline so straightforward. And you're doing everything basically in the same building. Yeah, again, he went the extra mile with his company to make sure that this little engine that was proposing itself to like be a big multiplex movie without a multiplex budget. We wanted to give it that feel and that vibe, and without talented people like them just going that extra mile, like we wouldn't have been able to even think about it.
Okay, no, all well done on that. Tell me about the first screenings you had and the audience reaction that you've had.
Oh, it's unbelievable. Our world premiere was at South by Southwest in Austin, and to this day, it was probably the most raucous screening we've ever had. In the middle of that festival, I think it was a Friday night. People were probably a little too boozed, but it was awesome to see it for the first time in a different country with a different just a completely different audience, and it just works so well. And post COVID, like I really haven't traveled much. So this year, well, in 2025, I got to travel again through the film. Like I got to go to Spain with the Sitges Film Festival. I got to do South by. I got to travel around Australia. I got to go Darwin. I finally got to tick that bucket list off my agenda. I can now say I've done all the states. But just seeing it with different people, just in different environments, that's exactly why I got involved in filmmaking in the first place, to like experience my film with audiences and then talk to people about my film. Like if you don't get a chance to do that, you kind of feel quite removed. And so selfishly, it was just awesome to do things the old fashioned way, travel, live in hotels, be in places you've never been before, and just soak in the atmosphere and a completely different culture. Yeah, it's just been great. And I'll tell you what, no matter where I go with the film, the one universal language again is those teeth. Like just seeing people who can't even and just squirming in their seats the second it starts up. That's been truly fascinating.
Oh, well done on that. That's so interesting to hear that reaction and all that. So now the film's releasing in Australia, which is great to see, and of course, I gather it will have worldwide release.
Yeah, so we've just sort of winding down our US release, where we did actual box office, which is absolutely amazing. Vertical went above and beyond, and this is the biggest theatrical that Vertical's ever done. So very very proud of the team with that, and so it'll be going to streaming pretty soon in the States, but now it's gearing up to go everywhere else, including Australia. So it'll be across cinemas in Australia from Feb 5, and yeah, this it's me experiencing the movie through festivals and through special screenings is starting to wind down now, and finishing up tonight at the Lunar Leaderville with an outdoor screening for technically our Perth premiere and our Perth cast and crew. So it's all sort of the end of an era, the end of the affair, but it's been a great journey, and I'm just excited that more and more people are now going to be able to finally see the film.
Okay, excellent to hear, and it should attract a good audience. It's a very good film indeed. Just to finish off, then, Zach, good to
Oh,
talk
thanks,
to you.
man.
Yeah. Are you working on another film or project at the moment?
Yeah, I mean, you got to keep your fingers in as many pies as possible in this crazy caper. You never know which one is going to go next, much like We Bury the Dead. That was one of a finger in a pie, and it just so happened to be the one that went. Yeah, I'm coming close to hopefully having some good news. I just don't want to
Yeah.
say any more, hence I jinx the project. But things are looking positive.
Fair enough. Looking forward to your next project. We've been speaking to writer-director Zak Hilditch for his latest film, We Bury the Dead, in cinemas from February the 5th. Thanks so much for talking with me, Zach.
Thank you.
Okay, all the best. Bye-bye.